What's up, everybody? Derek Anderson, the DA, and a friend of mine said, "Hey, man, I want you to take a look at this article." Every time this guy tells me to take a look at an article, I always end up making a video on this article. But this one is on digitalspy.com. It says, "Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power boss reveals the one major rule of the new series. Tolkien is inherently optimistic, warm, and emotional." It says Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power executive producer Juan Antonio Bayona has revealed the major rule they followed for the new series. According to Bayona, the number one thing they kept to when creating the show was that it needed to represent J.R.R. Tolkien's optimism and love. Oh, isn't that wonderful? Optimism and love. Yeah, that's what's important when you're doing some sort of a adaptation or you're talking about someone else's work. You're stepping into someone else's universe. You know, it's important that you really capture the optimism and the love. You know, canon be damned. You know, if they say, well, we gotta, take hold of this optimism. That's what's important, right? The love and the optimism of this story. Nah, the canon can, whatever. We'll get to the canon if we need to. But the main thing is that we deal with the optimism and the love. That's what's really, really, really important about taking J.R.R. Tolkien's works and adapting it to some sort of a television show or a movie. Yeah, it says when you read Tolkien's books, you can tell how much he appreciates beauty, so the show is full of beauty. Of course, beauty is the most important thing in this whole thing. You know, we're telling a story and, we have to show that he appreciates beauty. He likes flowers, so we had to put a lot of flowers in the show. And he liked, beautiful hillside vistas, so we need to make sure we put a lot of hillside vistas into the show. During the interview, Bayona said that Tolkien lived through the First World War and still wrote a positive and uplifting story, and they wanted to reflect this attitude in the series. Tolkien is inherently optimistic, warm, and emotional. Isn't that nice? Isn't that nice? Nice guy. We just really have to capture that stuff and done. We did it. We adapted Tolkien. As long as we are optimistic and warm and emotional and we show all of the beauty and the love that he adored so much, as long as we do that, we could just slap that Tolkien name right on top of the show, put Lord of the Rings, and off we go. We don't have to actually do any type of real adaptation to this. This is the man that went through some of the darkest things in human history, and he didn't come out of that writing a despairing, awful story. No, he came out of that writing a very, very particular story that was in his head about particular characters. And yeah, you guys are just kind of taking it and doing whatever you want to, but you're using this as the excuse, right? Oh, it's optimistic and warm and emotional, and that was rule number one. Remember, they said rule number one, and it has to capture the beauty and the love and the optimism of Tolkien. That's the only rules that matter. It was rule one. Now, they can sit up here and tell you all they want to that, oh yeah, this is all about being optimistic and warm and emotional and, capturing those facets of Tolkien's character. This is about the beauty and the love and all that kind of stuff. But like the actors already have come out and said, yeah, this is about representation. They've said it themselves. This is about representation. This is about showing a diverse world that Tolkien would have written or could have written. They're trying to adapt this for the modern era. That's basically what they're doing. They're taking Lord of the Rings, or they're taking that franchise, they're taking Middle Earth, and they're trying to adapt Middle Earth to the sensibilities of 2022. And that's why they say this kind of stuff, because the reality is they know that, this ain't gonna fly with real fans. Like, fans ain't gonna sit up here and really believe that, oh, this is a direct adaptation of what Tolkien thought. That's the problem that people are having with this, is that this is phony. Okay, this is just phony. It's a joke. All right, they're using Middle Earth as a platform so that they can spread a message of diversity and representation. But why do you got to come in here and step all over Lord of the Rings? Why do you got to use Tolkien stuff to do that? Create your own stuff. Just create your own stuff. You could easily just say, okay, this same exact story probably would be able to be easily translated into a similar type story just with a different skin on it. But you need that Lord of the Rings kind of shine to make this work, because it doesn't work without Lord of the Rings. That's the problem. These things don't work without major IPs, major properties sitting in front of them, okay? You know, shielding them from all this other stuff. It's sad. It's really, really sad. Ultimately, this isn't even really a Tolkien story. Like, I was reading this article, why Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power isn't based on the book Tolkien wrote. So they just kind of like jumped in here, and you can check this out as well. I'll put a link in the description. But like, this isn't really even a book that Tolkien wrote, okay? This is just like some mess that they threw together based on random ideas that they pulled out of Tolkien's work. They just said, all right, let's take a little of this, a little bit of that. Let's take a little bit of this. All right, that's enough. All right, let's go. Come on, we got our diversity and representation to do. I mean, it's like glorified fan fiction at this point. It's not even really fan fiction, because I don't think any of these people are fans. You know, call it poser fiction or something. Like, these cats do not really care about Tolkien or the fans or any of that whatsoever, okay? That's the hallmark of Hollywood at this point, and it's really sad. They take the audience for granted. The audience is going to watch it. We don't care what, you know, the audience thinks about it. They're going to watch it, or we'll have enough people watching it to care, and then we'll just make whatever we want to make. I mean, there are literally thousands of cultures you can pull from. I mean, all across the globe, talking about the Native American culture. You could go to African culture and have somebody sit down and write a similar Lord of the Rings style mythology, but base it out of African culture. You could do that, okay? I mean, there's literally thousands of cultures that they could dive into. They could draw from the cultures of the ethnicities that they are dying to represent so badly, and yet they won't do it. No, Lord of the Rings, that's what we got to do. Slap that Lord of the Rings on top of it, and they feel like they've accomplished something. And they are not creative people, like I was saying in the earlier video. Like, Hollywood is just creatively bankrupt. Like, they don't have a creative bone in their body to actually go out here and do the work, okay? They have to stand on the shoulders of giants, and then they have to kind of meddle around with the canon that's already existed, that people are already used to. And the reason that they do that is because if they actually had to create, they would have to do it on a smaller scale, right? Like, you know, Amazon's not about to drop $250 million or $500 million into somebody's pet project. You know, you would actually have to build that thing up from scratch. You would actually have to build an audience rather than hijack one, okay? You'd actually have to build your own audience with your own talent and everything, instead of saying, hey, let's just get all of these guys that love Tolkien and let's just shit all over his work. That's what you would have to do. You would actually have to build your own audience, and that's what Hollywood cannot do. And it would also slow down all the ego stroking, right? Okay, because right now, you know, that's what they're doing. A lot of this stuff is for them to do. Yay, you know, look at us, man, we did a lot of good representation, we did something for the poor little marginalized people. That's what they're doing. Instead of creating something brand new and standing on their own creativity, they got to hijack somebody else's stuff and then give themselves pats on the back like they're doing something. It's bogus, it's phony, it's a joke. Poser fiction, that's what I'm gonna call it. Poser fiction. It's not even fan fiction, it's poser fiction, because these guys aren't fans of Tolkien's work. You already know that. These guys are just sitting out there making whatever they want to make and laughing in your face. But anyway, folks, what do you think about this whole concept of, well, Tolkien, you know, it's the warmth and the optimism and the beauty. That was the first rule, not diversity, not representation. No. It was all about making this thing optimism, warmth, and emotion, beauty and love. That's what it was all about. Go ahead and give me your laughter in the comments below, and I thank you for watching. See you next time.